Happy Friday. Okay. Just an overview of the week ahead for all of you. Throughout the week, the President will continue to meet and call members of Congress about his transformative Build Back Better agenda and bipartisan infrastructure deal. On Monday, he will travel to New Jersey, where he will visit a school and one of the busiest railroad bridges in the country to continue rallying support for both his bipartisan infrastructure deal and Build Back Better agenda. Back in Washington, President Biden will meet with His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew and welcome the official delegation of the Orthodox Christian Church of the United States. I was about to lose my Greek American card there for a second, but I think I sailed through. On Tuesday, the President will campaign with former Governor Terry McAuliffe in Arlington, Virginia. On Thursday, the President and First Lady will travel to Rome, Italy. On Friday, the President will visit the Vatican City and have an audience with His Holiness Pope Francis. They will discuss working together on efforts grounded in respect for fundamental human dignity, including ending the COVID-19 pandemic, tackling the climate crisis, and caring for the poor. On Saturday and Sunday, the President will participate in the G20 Leader Summit. We will have more on individual bilateral engagements in the run-up to the summit. And from Rome, the President will travel to Glasgow, United Kingdom, from November 1st through the 2nd to participate in the World Leader Summit at the start of COP26, the 26th conference of the parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. I will note a programming note for all of you. We will have Jake Sullivan in here next week. We're working on finalizing the details to preview the trip in advance of the President's departure. But Zeke, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Jen.
Oh, sorry, can I note one more thing? I apologize. Today, the Vice President visited the Northeast Bronx YMCA in New York with HHS Secretary Javier Becerra, Governor Kathy Hochul, and Congressman Jamal Bowman. The Vice President will hear about the YMCA facilities' impact on the community and deliver remarks about how the bipartisan infrastructure deal and the Build Back Better agenda will benefit working families. She'll also highlight the importance of extending the child tax credit, which is one of the largest ever single tax cuts for families with children. Okay, Zeke, go ahead.
Thanks. What's the status of the negotiations over the President's social spending bill? House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested a deal could be done today. Does the President expect that? And who's he speaking with right now?
Well, he will continue to have calls throughout the course of the day and the weekend, as he has over the last several days. We will provide you details on those as we can. We have a goal, as Speaker Pelosi conveyed. We have milestones, and we're working on finalizing an agreement. That's the status. Our focus is on making significant progress on that. We've seen that happen over the last several days. We're encouraged by the shared commitment to get this done and deliver for the American people. But I don't have any new deadlines or timelines from here, nor have we set them from here over the last several days or weeks.
As that package that the President proposed initially at roughly $3.5 trillion, I think now looks to be being cut roughly in half. We've heard the President say he wants to come back at things later, things like community college and the other extending the life of some of these programs that have been shortened. Progressives have been saying that now's the moment to go big. There might not be another moment. Why does the President think, given how difficult things have been up to this point, that he'll have another bite at the apple to sort of make these programs more enduring, or to include even things that couldn't make it into this package somewhere down the line?
Well, let me say first, Zeke, that this package is on track to be to represent or to direct the most fundamental shift in supporting hardworking families over wealthy in modern American history. And the President's belief, as you heard him say last night, is that compromise is not a dirty word, and that we will get nothing if we do not have 50 votes. The alternative is not a larger package. The alternative is nothing. So his objective is to continue to press forward, to bring the parties together to get a historic package done. And I will note that there's a lot of history for this, and he talked about this a little bit last night, but there's history in putting in place a framework that puts in place positive fundamental change. Look at Social Security. Look at the Affordable Care Act. These are all historic programs that have then been built on domestically. And whatever the top line number is, which we're still obviously working through and negotiating, this is on track to change millions of middle class families who have been falling behind. Let me give you just a couple of examples. And he talked about this last night, but where the package stands as of now. The largest investment in childcare and early education, childhood education in history, with the first national universal preschool program ever in history. The largest investment in climate and clean energy in history, around 6 times the size of the Climate and Clean Energy energy investment in the Recovery Act, the second largest climate bill in history, the first national paid family and medical leave program ever, the largest expansion in health care coverage since the Affordable Care Act, leading 7 million people to gain new coverage, perpetuating the largest one-year drop in child poverty in history by extending the child tax credit, and a new investment in housing that is greater than the entire current annual budget of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That is what we were talking about here, even as we were talking about a package that's being negotiated that is smaller than what he originally proposed.
But why does he think that a future Congress or sometime later in his administration he'll have more luck going beyond where he's at right now and getting more spending for some of those programs at the levels that he initially wanted that to have to care about?
Well, two reasons, Zeke. One is what I referenced related to the Social Security program in history, or the Affordable Care Act, where these are programs that put in place the fundamental mechanisms in society to deliver on change and relief to people for decades to come. And what we're talking about here is instituting some programs that have never existed before. Universal pre-K. We're talking about paid family and medical leave. We're building on, as an example, the Affordable Care Act by continuing to expand healthcare coverage, which is another example of building. So the president's belief is these changes are long overdue. These changes are changes the American people have been asking for, have been demanding, want to see government act on to make their lives better, and that these packages will be the basis for building on in the future, during his administration as well.
Go ahead. Thanks, Jen. The president was pretty clear last night that Senator Sinema does not support raising taxes on big corporations or the corporate tax hike. The White House says that you guys are looking for other ways to pay for this package. What exactly are those proposals, and can this package be paid for without a corporate tax increase?
Yes, absolutely, but there are different corporate tax increases in here, so let me go through what a couple of the tax pieces are that are under consideration. I would note that as it relates to the president's comments last night, he was answering a question. These town halls are conversations. That's what's so endearing and engaging about them, but he was referring to the challenge of having the votes to move forward on raising the corporate rate, not the ability to raise revenue through a range of other tax fairness proposals. So let me give you a sense of a couple of those. So some of the biggest corporations in America pay literally nothing in income taxes, as we know, as we've talked about in the past, a lot in here. 55 of the biggest companies, they pay lower rates than wage-earning families. We can stop that by imposing a 15% minimum tax, a minimum corporate tax, to make sure large corporations pay their fair share. We also believe, the president believes, a number of other members of Congress believe, that we need to stop rewarding companies that offshore profits and American jobs. We'll do that by creating a global minimum tax, something the United States has been the global leader in, bringing together countries around the world, and that will help to make the United States more competitive and end the race to the bottom. We can also close loopholes for high-income Americans, including a loophole that allows some taxpayers, like hedge fund managers, to escape a Medicare tax imposed on all high-end income, on all high income. That's another proposal that's out there still. And we can crack down on wealthy tax cheats who are taking advantage of every honest taxpayer and invest in enforcement to stop 1% from evading $160 billion in taxes per year, something that Treasury secretaries, Republican and Democrats, have expressed support for and feel this is a strong part of the proposal. So I list all of those because those are all ideas out there, all ideas that would move us forward toward a greater system of tax fairness and also can help pay for the full package.
One more follow-up on the child tax credit. Speaker Pelosi told me yesterday that the president was looking at a one-year extension. According to the Census Bureau, 47% of families use that money to buy food. Will those children be left behind if there's only a one-year extension on the child tax credit?
Well, to be clear, the president proposed a longer extension. What the president is, though, looking to do is to extend the child tax credit, something that he proposed himself earlier this year, and again proposed extending it because he thinks it does have such an important and dramatic impact on people across the country. Many economists have credited it with cutting the childhood poverty rate in half. He absolutely thinks it should be a part of what American families can benefit from. But it's smaller because compromise is not a dirty word, and it is something that we still believe is a positive step forward to extend. Go ahead.
What drove the shift in the president's posture this week in terms of, he laid out a lot of details to rank and file members on Tuesday, he laid out a lot of details to the entire world last night, something you guys have been wanting to talk about over the course of the last several months. Why now? Why has he moved in this direction?
The charm of Anderson Cooper, I guess. I'm just kidding. Look, I think, Phil, that we are at this point in the conversation and in the debate where we are getting into the nitty-gritty details, and the president is deeply engaged in those discussions. I think what you saw last night, what the American people saw last night, is that the president has rolled up his sleeves and he is deep in the details of spreadsheets and numbers and what the potential impact can be to help the American people. And he was candid, and he was candid about where the negotiations stood, and also wanted the American people to understand, as I just outlined earlier, that progress here is a historic package that will put in place systems and programs that have never existed in our society before. So I think what you're seeing is that we're getting closer. We're into the nitty-gritty details. There is agreement about some fundamental investments in our society, and he loves having conversations with the American people about what he's fighting for.
Two more just to follow up on last night. Can you clarify where discussions are, if they exist at all, in terms of the National Guard and the supply chain?
Oh, can I clarify where things stand?
My understanding is it had been talked about, but it wasn't something you guys were moving toward. The president seemed to say differently last night.
Sure. Well, any president has the ability to use the National Guard from the federal level. Requesting the use of the National Guard at the state level, which is often how it's done, is under the purview of governors, and we're not actively asking them to do that, and we're not actively pursuing the use of the National Guard on a federal level. But it is something that any president would have the capacity to do, the authority to do, but it is not something under active consideration.
And then one more. The president was asked if the U.S. would come to Taiwan's defensive attack by China, and he said, yes, we have a commitment to do that. Is there a shift in U.S. policy as it relates to Taiwan and a defense agreement?
Well, there has been no shift. The president was not announcing any change in our policy, nor has he made a decision to change our policy. There is no change in our policy. Our defense relationship with Taiwan is guided by the Taiwan Relations Act. Some of the principles of the Taiwan Relations Act that the United States will continue to abide by, of course, is assisting Taiwan in maintaining a sufficient self-defense capability. Another principle is that the United States would regard any effort to determine the future of Taiwan by other than peaceful means a threat to the peace and security of the Western Pacific and of grave concern to the United States. I would also note that Secretary Austin also spoke to this earlier today, and he said, as the Secretary of Defense, of course, nobody wants to see cross-strait issues come to blows. Certainly not President Biden, and there's no reason that it should. And that is certainly emblematic of our approach as well. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just piggybacking on that question about Taiwan, the U.S. policy is one of strategic ambiguity on this. He seemed pretty unambiguous with what he said last night. Was that intentional?
What I can convey to you is that our policy has not changed. He was not intending to convey a change in policy, nor has he made a decision to change our policy.
Okay. Moving back to the legislation, is the president confident, or is he hoping for a vote on this before he heads to Europe next week?
Well, his preference would certainly be to get something done in the coming days. And obviously he will work closely with Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer to do exactly that. But I don't have any new deadlines or timelines to set for you today.
Beyond citing the rhodium report, if he arrives in Glasgow without this in hand, what is his message to world leaders on that world stage?
His message is that he is a president who will bring the climate crisis back to the top of the priority list for the United States. And he has already taken steps to do exactly that, not just by rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, but by taking steps working with the leaders of the auto industry to move towards electric vehicles and electric vehicle future to reduce greenhouse gas emissions here in the United States, and that he has proposed the largest investment in addressing the climate crisis in American history. And that is something we are on track to deliver on, even with a smaller package.
Just lastly, does the president or the White House have a reaction to the Alec Baldwin shooting incident in New Mexico?
Other than to say that it is obviously a tragedy, the loss of life, and as I understand it, the individual who is in the hospital, and so our thoughts and prayers go out to their family members, but no, beyond that, we don't have an additional U.S. reaction. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. And follow on China and Taiwan, just to be crystal clear. When the president says that the U.S. has a commitment to protect Taiwan, does that commitment include military intervention in the event of a Chinese attack?
Again, as I said earlier, he wasn't announcing a change in policy, nor have we changed our policy, which I think is the most important point here. And we are guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, and I just outlined what some of those principles are, which is ensuring that we continue to assist Taiwan in maintaining a sufficient self-defense capability, and that is something we remain committed to doing.
So can you just remind us that policy is no, there would not be military intervention, right?
Our policy is to be guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, which is the specifics of that are that we are going to continue assisting Taiwan in maintaining a sufficient self-defense capability. Another principle is that we regard any effort to determine the future of Taiwan by other than peaceful means as a threat to the peace and security of the Western Pacific. But as I noted earlier, our Secretary of Defense conveyed clearly what our policy and our view is, which is that no one wants to see cross-strait issues come to blows. That is what we want to avoid, and that's what the American people should understand as our focus. That's the view of the President, that's the view of the Secretary of Defense, and there's no reason anyone should think otherwise.
And then a follow-up on all those tax options that you might have if the corporate tax is not raised, and if there is no hike in taxes on the wealthy. Will all of those still guarantee that this package will not be deficit spending?
Yes.
Okay.
And none of that has been concluded. I think I gave all those additional components of tax options that are out there that, and Senator Sinema can obviously speak for herself, as I always convey from here, but she has been supportive of a number of these options, as have others, and those are all options that can help ensure we're moving toward a more fair tax system, but also pay for these investments.
Thanks. And just one more on the filibuster. What are some ways that the filibuster can be fundamentally altered without ending it altogether?
Look, I think the president will have more to say about this in the coming weeks. But I think what you heard him say last night is that we're at an inflection point in a range of issues, including, and this is often why it comes up, voting rights. And he talked about this a little bit yesterday when he was at the 10th anniversary of the MLK Memorial. We know the right to vote and the rule of law are under unrelenting assault from Republican governors, attorneys general, secretaries of state, state legislators, and legislators. And time again, when offered the choice, 3 times over the last several months, when a hand has been extended by Democrats to work together to protect the fundamental right, Republicans have not only recoiled, they have blocked the ability to make any semblance of progress. So what the president's referring to is the fact that that is unacceptable. The protection of the fundamental right to vote is something that has been bipartisan in the past. He spoke back in March about his concerns or how he would view it if the Republicans continue to be obstructionist around it, and we've seen that time and time again. So he will discuss what that looks like, because not getting voting rights done is not an option.
So does that frustration explain his evolution of thinking on the filibuster? In July, he said eliminating it would throw Congress into chaos and nothing would get done.
Well, I would also note that back in March, he noted that if there was obstruction, that it was something that we would have to take a look at. So, look, I think many of you have covered the president for some time, and you know that his view is that we should pursue ways to work in a bipartisan manner, that we should pursue paths forward that can get things done for the American people. When he helped lead the effort to authorize the voting rights bill back when he was a senator, that was done in a bipartisan way. And he is frustrated, he is disappointed, he is sad that this is not something